Aloha, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in a few minutes. We'll get started around 3:05 just so we can get everyone settled. So please feel free to do anything you need to do, but we'll go ahead and get started in about 2 minutes. All right. Well, I have 3:05 on my end. So just to be respectful of everyone's time, we'll go ahead and get started. Aloha kako and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Hawaii Public Health Association's National Public Health Week event. My name is Anika Martin. My pronouns are she, her, and I am currently serving as president for the Hawaii Public Health Association. And on behalf of the entire board, we are so glad to have you all here with us. Before we begin, I'll quickly walk us through today's agenda. We'll start with a brief opening remarks, followed by our panel discussion centered on this year's theme, Kuleana to Action. We'll then move into a Q&A session. So we really do encourage you all to just think of questions as we go. And then we'll wrap up with a few closing reflections and ways to stay connected. So once again, thank you so much for being here. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with the opening remarks. As HPHA president of this year, we're so honored to gather in recognition of National Public Health Week, which happens to be an annual observance established in 1995 by the American Public Health Association to highlight the importance of public health and the work being done to improve the well-being of our communities. In Hawaii, the Hawaii Public Health Association has proudly celebrated National Public Health Week for over 25 years, grounded in our shared commitment to community, culture, and collective care. This year's theme, Kuleana to Action, reminds us that public health is a shared responsibility. It challenges us to move beyond intention and into action, uplifting community voices and supporting the vital, often under-recognized work happening across our islands and communities. We really wanted to mahalo for you all, not only for being here, but for the role you play in advancing the health of our local communities. Before we begin, I wanted to just take a brief moment to acknowledge and mahalo to our generous event sponsors. So mahalo to Waikiki Health, the Hawaii Dental Service, Chaminade University, Hawaii Friends for Restorative Justice, Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center, Hawaii Pacific University, Hawaii Public Health Institute, Papaololokahi, and the UH Manoa Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health. Um, your support really does make events like today's possible, and it helps us continue to uplift the communities and organizations advancing health equity across Hawaii. So on behalf of HPHA and our entire board, we really do appreciate your partnership and commitment to advancing public health across our islands. I also wanted to take a moment to mahalo our valued organizational members for for their ongoing support of the Hawaii Public Health Association and our work to advance health equity across the state. So mahalo to our Miley level members. That includes Mental Health America of Hawaii and UHA Health Insurance. Mahalo to our hibiscus level members. Those are Chaminade University of Honolulu, Hawaii Pacific University, Parents and Children Together, UH Manoa Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health, University of Hawaii West Oahu, and Waikiki Health. And last but certainly not least, mahalo to our plumeria level members, the Hawaii Public Health Institute, HMSA, and Papa Ololokahi. Once again, to all of our organizational members, your commitment and partnership really do help make events like today possible once again and strengthen public health activities across the state. So we really, truly are grateful for all that you do in support of our organization. At this time, I'd like to welcome our presenting sponsor, Waikiki Health. As our presenting sponsor, Waikiki Health has been an incredible partner in supporting public health initiatives across Hawaii, and we're really thrilled to have them with us today. So representing Waikiki Health, our board member, Elizabeth Makara, will share a few remarks with our participants. So Elizabeth, if you could go ahead.
Aloha. Thank you, Nika. Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen. You could give me a thumbs up if you can see my full slide there that says Waikiki Health. Great. Oh, I see Vicky. Thank you for the thumbs up. I'll just share briefly about Waikiki Health, who we are as an FQHC, and some of our services and what makes us a wonderful place to work for. So we've been offering compassionate healing and expert care for almost 60 years now. We're a federally qualified community health center, and our mission is to provide quality and social services that are accessible and affordable to everyone, regardless of ability to pay. So we have bustling clinics in Waikiki on Ohua Avenue, in Mo'ili'ili, our Makahiki clinic on Makahiki Way, and we serve the Diamond Head and Mo'ili'ili area as well with many integrated services that you see on your screen here. We also have emergency shelter at the Keahu shelter. We've been operating that since 2020, and before that, we operated the Next Step shelter in Kaka'ako. So we're dedicated to helping our homeless community members in our transitional shelter with housing placement services. We also offer mail services at our Ohua clinic. We have extensive job training for our shelter residents as well. We offer outreach medical services, and we have a Pu'onua prisoner reentry program where we work with people that are leaving prison and help them get set up with their comprehensive medical care, with ID, with shelter. And so those are some of the services we offer, as well as a very robust emergency department reduction program for patients who go to the emergency room too much. We partner with Queens, and we meet with them on a monthly basis and our insurance payer partners. And we have fantastic metrics with that program as well. We also have pictured here our mobile medical unit, where we work with partner agencies and provide outreach, exams, wound care, TB tests, health education. We do follow a PCMH model of patient-centered medical homes. So Waikiki Health is accredited in offering our integrated services within both of our main facilities. Just to give you a sense of how many patients we serve, we're just finalizing our UDS numbers for 2025, but in 2024, we had over 58,000 visits with about 30,000 almost medical visits, over 6,500 behavioral health visits, over 6,000 dental visits, 1,400 optometry visits, over 1,500 Native Hawaiian healing visits, over 1,000 related to substance use disorder, and over 7,500 enabling services as well we offered. Our patient population, this screen gives you a little bit of a sample of our patient demographics, with just over 52% being male, 42% being female, and the remainder transgender, undisclosed, other, or unknown. So this just gives you a little bit of a sense of our overall demographics on this screen. For insurance, over 20% of our patients live below the federal poverty level. Almost 13% of our patients are homeless. 50% are on Medicaid, almost 20% on Medicare, and about 23% on private insurance, and about 8% are uninsured. And so we do offer sliding fee scale insurance for those who do not have insurance as well. So this map gives you a sense of our facilities that span across Waikiki, Mo'iliili, and in Kaimuki, our PATH clinic, and I'll tell you just about that in a moment. So our Ohua clinic is our bustling clinic on Ohua Avenue in the heart of Waikiki, where we offer comprehensive services. We have a pharmacy. We have one of the largest HIV programs in the state as well. We have medical nutrition therapy, Native Hawaiian healing, extensive care coordination. Our Makahiki Medical and Dental Clinic, we opened that in 2014. It was our first dental clinic, where we also offer primary care. We have optometry there, a second pharmacy, more tobacco treatment, Hep C case management, health education, and minor urgent care, offering walk-in or same-day appointments. Our dental clinic, we offer comprehensive dental services. This is Dr. Kenji Sakai, our dental director and one of our main dentists there. So we offer compassionate and caring dental services. It's a great place to get dental work done. Our Keaho shelter, as I mentioned, are in Mo'iliili. We work with the state as the state works with many shelters here. We're under a contract with them. We have about 80 residents there, and they live in individual units, and everyone who comes to our shelter gets assigned a housing navigator, and they work together to achieve full-time housing or permanent housing. We also have job training, an extensive program where we've worked for many years with the HCDA on training for our residents there as well. And we also help them obtain documents like ID and Social Security, and of course give them referrals for medical care. Our PATH clinic, as I mentioned, in Kaimuki, that's known as the Perinatal Addiction Treatment Home of Hawaii. We partner and have always partnered with the Salvation Army and Women's Way program, where we help women with current substance use disorder who are pregnant or nursing have healthy babies. So we offer extensive OBGYN services where we partner with Hpha on that too, behavioral health, addiction counseling, and tobacco treatment. As I mentioned, we have 2 pharmacies with a range of prescriptions and over-the-counter medications. We accept most insurance plans. We also have a sliding fee scale for those who need it, and we offer delivery as well for our patients. We have a very robust tobacco treatment program where we offer free counseling, NRT, personalized quit plans, education and information, and we have wonderful outcomes with tobacco and vape use. And a few years ago, excuse me, we started offering school health services at Jarrett Middle School in Pololo. So we offer on-site physical exams, group health education to youth, first aid, and vaccinations. And I'm just wrapping up on my final couple of slides. We also have comprehensive, as I mentioned earlier, HIV early intervention services, and where we offer a wide range of programs and testing for individuals at risk, and extensive case management as well. And Waikiki Health, we have a very robust internal employee wellness program for our staff. We care about our staff and their mental, physical, and emotional wellness. So we have 4 quarterly initiatives where we see our staff. You can see some photos of our happy staff here doing some annual initiatives where we get out, we get moving, we have challenges each quarter where we use a app called Wellable and offer it to our staff, and about 50% of our staff participate annually in our wellness challenges, where we have extensive prizes and awards for them, everything from like mental health awareness to drinking more water, to step challenges, resilience challenges, sleep challenges, stress management challenges. So it's one of the many benefits that we offer our staff. So if you know of anyone looking for a long-term career for meaningful and mission-based work, Waikiki Health is a wonderful place to work. And thank you so much for allowing me to share a little bit about Waikiki Health today.
Thank you so much, Liz, for that wonderful presentation on Waikiki Health. We'll be sure to reach out if we have any additional questions on any of the wonderful services that you and your organization provides to the community. Um, Perfect. So thank you so much. We'll go ahead and move forward with our presenters. Um, I did want to note that unfortunately, one of our speakers, Hpha, founder and executive director of Mauliloa Ke'ehi, is unable to join us today due to some personal circumstances. So we do send our warm wishes to her for a speedy recovery and appreciate your understanding. But with that, we'll go ahead and move forward with our 2 panelists. Our first panelist is Chris Chang, Executive Director of Aloha Tree Alliance, a Hawaii-based nonprofit focused on environmental restoration, stewardship, and community engagement. Chris has been an integral to the organization's growth, bringing more than a decade of leadership experience in community-driven innovation and partnership building. Under his guidance, Aloha Tree Alliance deepens its restoration efforts, strengthens collaborative relationships, and navigates the evolving landscape of nonprofit and community-centered environmental work. So we're delighted to welcome Chris and hear his wonderful perspectives on actionable, equity-centered public health. And once again, as we go through our presenters, please feel free to input any questions you folks may have in the chat for our moderator to later ask during our question and answer portion. I'll go ahead and toss it over to Chris.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm so excited to be here and share a little bit more about our work today. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. Can everyone see that there?
Yes.
All right, I'll take silence as a positive good thing. All right, aloha mai kako. My name is Chris Chang. After that introduction, I don't have to go too much more into what I do, but I've been working with Aloha Tree Alliance for the last about 3 years as a board member and the last 8 months as executive director. Aloha Tree Alliance is a small community-driven organization founded in 2020. We're here on Oahu, and we work at that intersection of conservation, culture, climate change, and community health. So before I dive into things, I wanted to start off with a moment. Imagine a group of keiki, maybe 8 or 9 years old, crouched in the forest with hands in the soil, learning about the name of a native Hawaiian tree you choose from an auntie who learned it from her grandmother. So no screens, no tests at the end of it, just knowledge getting passed down from one generation to the next, the way it always has. So that moment, that simple, rooted, embodied moment is public health. It's exactly what this week is about. And it is the line that I'm trying to thread between our work at ATA and community public health in our state. So starting off with, just a mahalo for involving us in National Public Health Week. It's a great opportunity to uplift organizations that many people may have never heard of. Some of you hopefully have been volunteered with ATA. If you haven't, I hope to see you in the near future. But these organizations are doing work that a lot of people don't see. We're serving communities that have often been underserved or overlooked. And today I just want to share a little bit more about how Aloha Tree Alliance is living out this year's theme of Kuleana to Action. So, what is Aloha Tree Alliance? We are a grassroots community organization, and I know that that word grassroots gets used a lot, so let me be a little more specific about what it means for us. We were not started by a government agency or a foundation. We were actually started by two aunties who just had a deep love for this Aina. And they witnessed one of their home hiking trails in Kuli'o actively being degraded by hikers. And it started off by simply wanting to plant a tree and help to preserve some of our most valued natural resources for future generations. And this vision has grown into the organization that we are today. We have outplanted, we currently outplant over 2,500 native plants and trees per year and engage over 1,200 community volunteers annually. Um, our mission centers on restoring native forests, reconnecting people to their relationship or their pilina with land and aina, and building healthy, more resilient communities in the process. We work with schools, families, community groups, and volunteers. We have our own Native Hawaiian plant nursery. We plant trees, we train young people. We do it in a way that centers around culture because I believe in what you cannot separate health from the land. So now that we've gone through that, what does this matter for public health? How does this matter for public health? Let me start off with 4 gaps that we focus on with ATA. The first is access. So many community members that we work with don't have access to meaningful outdoor activities. So on, at least where I live on the south side of the island, we look at the ko'olaus every day. But those access to Aina-based activities are not always as accessible as we would like them to be. Sometimes it's cost, sometimes it's transportation, sometimes it's just that feeling of we've got so much to do, we don't have time for those programs or those programs aren't for us. So I just want to say that those barriers are real and those barriers do have health consequences. The second is education. Watershed education is invisible to most people until something goes wrong. Case in point of what has happened over the last couple of weeks on the North Shore. Most Hawaii residents do not know where their water comes from, what threatens it, and or what they can do about it. So that's not a character flaw of those individuals, those families, those communities. That's a true gap in our systems. The third is funding in the bottom left quadrant. Native forest reforestation is chronically underfunded by the state. Typically, somewhere between 1 to 2% of our state's annual budget is allocated to conservation work each year. So the replanting that we do of native trees, ali'i, koa, ohia, that work that protects our water supply, our aquifers, reduces flood risk, that falls largely on grassroots organizations like ours. And we do have limited resources. So it takes a village to make these efforts come to life. And fourth is cultural disconnection or cultural reconnection. Many of our community members, namely Native Hawaiian families, carry this deep longing to continue to be in relationship with the land in traditional ways. And when that relationship is severed, whether that be by history, by colonization, by economic pressures, health suffers. And so figuring out how we go about the way of reconnection is healing. So how do we as ATA show up for the community? There are a lot of organizations doing environmental work in Hawaii, a lot of organizations doing great environmental work in Hawaii. So what makes us different is not what we're doing, but the way that we're thinking about and going about this change. And not saying that we're radically different from other conservation organizations. This is just the way that we think about the principles that drive the work that we do. So our work largely revolves around 3 principles that we integrate into every program that we run. And I'll walk through them one by one. The first is equity-centered design. So this means that we don't design programs for communities, we design programs with communities. And that subtle word change carries a profound difference. When you're designing for someone, you're often making assumptions, right? You're bringing your own lens and cultural context into the work that you're doing. You're creating something that may be technically good, but it might not feel adoptable or might feel foreign to the people that you're trying to serve. So when you design with somebody, the difference is you're starting by listening, right? You're asking questions like, what do you already know? What do you care about? What has informed your thinking? What would make this meaningful for your ohana, your culture, your future, right? That process takes longer. It's messier, but it produces something that actually works. It's that work with community that makes a difference, and it's that work that builds products that communities can trust. So the second piece is removing barriers to access. We talked a little bit earlier about families who look up at those mountains every day, but don't actually have that chance to go in and reforest or replant. Um, Removing barriers to access sounds simple, but it requires constant attention to those actual problems and the understandings of what it takes to actually break those barriers down. All of our programs at ATA are free. We attempt to support with transportation needs when that may become an issue for schools and students. We go to where our community is. We go to schools, we talk to schools, we go to community focused programs rather than always asking them to come to us. And that work helps to build that trust over time. And because for so many communities, trust is that barrier, when you can build something that people feel comfortable showing up to, they can really begin to believe in it. And it's that consistency through showing up and following through that really helps to build that following. And the third principle that we work around is a collective responsibility. And at ATA, we believe that health and community health is not just an individual or an individual's achievement. It's really an achievement of the community or a community project. Clean water does not belong to one person, right? A healthy watershed doesn't just serve one family, and native forests don't just protect one neighborhood. These are all shared resources, and they require, honestly, shared stewardship. So that is one of the things that ATA focuses on, is bringing and creating access so that community members of all ages, all demographics can get involved in a meaningful way. So what does this all look like in action? What does ATA do? We've talked about the reforestation efforts. We've talked a little bit about education efforts. I wanted to highlight two of our big programs that are pushing us forward into 2026 and beyond. So the first is our native Hawaiian plant nursery. Just 1 year ago in 2025, we were dealing with this massive issue of having to procure a large volume of native plants. And let me tell you, this is a big challenge for nonprofits who are dealing with reforestation. Looking for reliable plants, looking for cost-effective solutions, and then having to go through the process of picking them up. I mean, it's a lot of work. I'll give you a little bit more color to that example, right? If we're planting 2,500 plants a year and our average cost per plant is $10, we're looking at somewhere between $25,000 to $35,000 a year just to meet our planting goals. So if we're doing a restoration project, you either have to meet and fundraise to meet those significant costs, travel far to source those plants, or figure out a workaround. And that barrier means that these community-led projects and programming have a hard time actually taking place. So in October of 2025, we recently completed our own 1,440 square foot native Hawaiian plant nursery. It's in the back of Kamilanui Valley in Hawaii Kai. And a fully operational nursery means for us that we can produce thousands of native Hawaiian plants that we're outplanting every year. We get them inspected to meet state standards, and we actually can put those plants on the trail. We're working not only to have this nursery produce plants, but to be a resource for our community, to build educational and learning opportunities and internship opportunities for students, to invite volunteers and community members to come on the weekend to learn more about just the simple propagation of plants. For kupuna to come in and share knowledge around what historical use for plants may have been, whether those are medicinal or cultural. right? So it's not just a nursery that's providing plants. The impact of this nursery is also that it is providing a place of cultural transmission, of community building and environmental education all at once. And that's what we're trying to do with our programs, is not just to provide a solution to one objective and a solution for one aspect of a community's needs, but to look at all the things that we're doing and to provide an encompassing solution. So that transformation is absolutely real. We went from we want to restore a native plants and can't access them to we're now actually growing these plants and we can provide an experience that shows community members what it looks like to provide support from seed all the way to tree. So the second example that I want to share is actually our flagship work and our flagship project at Coolio Ridge Trail. Some of you may have had the opportunity to join us. If you haven't, I hope that you will be able to come out and help us soon. This project has been going on for about 5 years, and it has been about the removal of invasive species and the restoration of native Hawaiian plants and trees across multiple sites or little sites that we call kipuka. So on the Big Island, you may know that after a lava flow, there will be these little spots of land where the lava won't kind of cover them up, and they will be the first points where the forest will begin to grow back, and they're called kipuka. And so that's what we've modeled our little restoration sites off of, and we'll plant in one area and an area next to it with the idea that eventually those little sites will turn into restoration corridors. And it really helps volunteers to understand the life cycle of kipuka to corridor and what it means to regrow a native forest. So it's not just about planting one tree when you come out to volunteer. It's about really educating our keiki to kupuna on the role that they have in the health of the land and what they can do to encourage that reforestation and the regrowth of our native forests. We're rebuilding the ecological systems that filter our water. We're working to create cleaner upstream opportunities so we have safe places to play in our oceans for generations to come. So these watershed health improvements, these youth and volunteers that are trained, the invasive species that we remove and the native trees that we replant, deepens that community trust. And these are not small things, right? All and each of these initiatives are building blocks to create generational health and to create opportunities for our keiki to kupuna to become involved and be part of the solution. So I know I've only got a couple minutes left, so I want to quickly cover the last two slides, which is, the ATA's work truly at the center of it is public health work. When we restore a watershed, we are protecting our drinking water. We are restoring the upstream health so that we have cleaner oceans. Our coral can thrive. We're reducing erosion, especially through developed areas and neighborhoods. We're rebuilding those relationships with our community and the land. And when we think about what that means for public health, I always come back to the word of vai, right? In Hawaiian, we know that vai means water, but vai is also at the root of vai, which is health and abundance. So the health of our water is really from that core word of vai inseparable from the health of our communities. You can't have one without the other. And public health has spent decades trying to address the social determinants of health, whether that stems from income, housing, environmental education, or environment or education. And what community-based organizations like ATA or the other nonprofits that are doing this work on the ground would love you to understand is that you cannot address these determinants in isolation from culture and from people. And in Hawaii, culture and the land and the water, our identities connecting to all of these pieces are part of the same system. And when that system is healthy, the people are healthy. And so when communities lead their own health journeys and they can have access to programs like ours, like others, our partner organizations, when they're not just the recipients of services, but can help to be the designers and participants in the solutions, the results are more sustainable, they're more trustworthy, and they're more transformative. So just to wrap things up, my call to action is to come and join us. Um, if you're interested in, partnering with ATA, if this talk has got you excited about how you can go out and plant a tree, or an organization that would be a great partner for us, or that we should talk to, whether it's a school program or a restoration partner or a government partner or private partner, we want to hear from you. Please share your ideas with us. We are always better at working when working together. Um, Funding, second big thing. ATA is a very small organization. We're 4 full-time employees. Um, that do a lot of work curating community. And in a small organization like that, doing big work, every dollar counts. So if partners that may be interested in getting involved, funding this small, culturally rooted, community-driven work is one of the highest leverage instruments, I believe, public health equity organizations can make. And finally, this is a shameless plug for ATA. But come Malama Aina with us. We're out there in Kulia'o. We're out there in the nursery multiple times a week. Every Friday, we do restoration work on the trail. And once every third Saturday, we have a big community work day. And this month being Earth Month, or Earth Day in Earth Month, we have one of our largest community work days of the year on April 18th. We would love to see you there. It's more than just planting a tree. It's sitting in a circle of amazing community members and volunteers and learning together. It's about finding your people, and finding your place. So we hope that you can join us soon to learn more about us at ATA, and get involved with the community, um, that can kind of help drive public health within your lens. So with that, mahalo. I'll be around for questions on the panel after this, but you can learn more about ATA at alohatreealliance.org. Feel free to reach out to me directly at chris@alohatreealliance.org, or our catch-all email is info@alohatreealliance.org. You can stay in touch with us also through our Instagram, at Aloha Tree Alliance, on most of our social platforms and Instagram. So with that, I will wrap up and hand off the mic. So mahalo for your attention.
Thank you so much, Chris, for that beautiful, may I add, presentation. I am certain that at least one person in this space feels empowered and would love to support all of the work you're doing in your wonderful organization. And we are hoping that a few members in this space can join you on April 18th. So I also do have it on my calendar in case I can attend to that. Alrighty, our final speaker is Kiki Walker, a core member of SWAP Hawaii, the Sex Workers Outreach Project Hawaii. Kiki works at the intersection of harm reduction, outreach, and community-led support for people who engage in sex work and survivors here in the state. They also founded the BIPOC Sex Worker Writer Space, a creative initiative that uses paid publishing and monthly writing groups to support economic justice and artistic expression. With experience in both grassroots activism and philanthropic advising, Kiki brings a very powerful perspective on bridging community organizing with sustainable resource redistribution and culturally grounded public health work. We really are honored to have them present the wonderful work that SWAP Hawaii does. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass the mic on to Kiki.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Nika. And thanks everyone for joining today and being interested in this work. Let me get my screen shared, and then if I can have someone just let me know if they can see my slides.
Yes.
All good. Okay, awesome. Let me make this full screen though, too. Sorry, thank you. Um, 1 minute. Can I do this? Can I do this? I can do it. Okay, thanks, y'all. So, hi again. I'm Kiki Walker. I'm one of the core organizers with Sex Workers Outreach Project Hawaii. And I have our organization email, or not email, but our website listed here if you want to check out our org after the fact as well. So our mission with Swap Hawaii is that we're a sex worker-led organization dedicated to advocating for the rights and safety, as well as the self-determination for sex workers and folks in the sex trades in Hawaii. We prioritize serving BIPOC trans sex workers, primarily experiencing housing and food insecurity, but we serve all folks who identify in that way here in Hawaii. So whether they're experiencing any type of insecurities or not, we're here to support. Our mission is work towards aiding safety, autonomy, and dignity for all sex workers. It is a stigmatized field of work. It's a criminalized field of work. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the differences between autonomous work and trafficking that might happen, or other types of violence. So it's a really big priority of ours to advocate through education and then also just direct support, resources, and harm reduction. And then also just like for another little bit of background about the organization itself. So Sex Workers Outreach Project is a national organization. And this was a branch of that organization. So there's arms all over the continent. The branch that is out here was actually started by a wonderful advocate, Tracy Ryan, back in 2018, alongside one of our current, sorry if you can hear my bird in the background, he's a little cranky. Hopefully you can't hear him, but he's squawking. So anyway, so yeah, back in 2018, Tracy Ryan and Doug Up were the founders of this chapter. We went through some changes and then it was reactivated again in 2020 in a response to COVID and just other things that were going on in the world that were making our community more vulnerable. And so that was Jen, Kwok, and Doug at that time. Now we're a group of 8. So we're always kind of shifting and moving. We're bringing in new leadership, youth leadership, which has been really exciting. So Doug is still organizing with us, Jen is still organizing, and then myself and a couple other folks. So why do we do the work? Sex workers, survivors of trafficking, and others who have been involved in the sex trades experience violence across many spaces, increased by criminalization, heavy societal stigma, discrimination, and systemic equities. We believe that this violence can and should stop. And I put a little bit of information from a scientific study, and I have it linked here. So when you get the slides after, you can kind of check that out. But it notes that the lifetime prevalence of any or combined workplace violence for sex workers specifically ranged from 45 to 75%. Growing research links contextual factors with violence against sex workers alongside known interpersonal and individual risks. This high burden of violence against sex workers globally and large gaps in epidemiological data support the need for research and structural interventions to better document and respond to these contextual factors shaping the violence they're experiencing. So basically, this is just like a call in for providers and folks who are doing outside of our like grassroots work, but medical professionals and other formalized spaces, scientific research spaces, the university to bring in communities that include sex workers into their work so they can be the ones leading kind of where the work is going. We find that's really critical in learning ways to stop this type of violence. And I think when I'm mentioning violence too, it's not just like the physical violence that occurs, it's also the violence of being unhoused, not having the resources that you need to show up in society, not being able to access safe spaces or be able to report harms that are caused against you. So those types of violences as well. Some of our main programs, we do street-based outreach. So it's kind of like if you know, you know. Some of the harm reduction providers on the islands know where we show up, but it's basically in town. And if you're interested in volunteering with us, then we would share the location with you, obviously. But almost every weekend, pretty much every Saturday, we show up in community from 8 to 10 p.m. We offer anywhere from 65 to 100 community members harm reduction supplies on the weekends. So this includes condoms, lube, safer drug use supplies, and other harm reduction items. We also serve hot food. We give other resources like zines, and then we just have like some community connection element. We get to talk to people, kind of understand what their needs are. And that's what really informs what we even bring out. Most of the stuff that we have on our table is because somebody in the community or that's directly related asked for those things. Another important thing that we do are community events and trainings. So we often quarterly community wellness events. We do art-focused events and other community engagement activities just for sex workers and survivors. So we try to have those spaces just be for community where we're able to relate with each other and have that kind of safe, protected time. The wellness events have been kind of like just a really transformational space for folks. We've been able to have cultural wellness providers as well as be in spaces that have cultural significance. So that's been really important. A lot of the folks that we're serving are Native Hawaiian or come from Pacifica communities. And so it's been nice for them to be able to access holistic wellness and healthcare that they can't get through maybe their health insurance or more typical offerings. We also, as an organization, offer trainings for healthcare providers around sex worker competency. We also do for the more open community, legislative 101s, STI 101s that was in partnership with Planned Parenthood. And then we did a zine making event where we invited community members and allies to come in and we just talked about writing and the importance of documenting our experiences. And then we also did a Know Your Rights session this past year for migrant laborers and migrant sex workers specifically. And this is, a couple pictures of some of those events. This picture is from a talk story event that we had with Kapuna. It was in conjunction with Hpha Hawaii and the Imperial Sovereign Court of Hawaii. So we had some sex worker elders just talk about their experiences, kind of where they were, where they're at now, and the vision they see for themselves in the future. So it was really cool. Some other key initiatives, which I kind of mentioned in talking about our events and things, but our zines, and a couple of slides ago, there was some screenshots, but we've done some political zines. And zines are like small magazines or like small productions that are printed out easily and are meant to give community information. So we did one during RIMPAC to just educate community about the impacts of militarization on our community and how to support and bring safety into the community during those times. We also do mutual aid. So we have direct resources that are available for folks who identify as sex workers. If they need to pay for something, we don't ask. It's just direct mutual aid. It's been a really transformational way to support people. We do leadership development. So there are members of the community who have identified that they want to get into more like political action, or maybe they want to organize their own events. We've allowed those community members to lead and also given them leadership development and support. We've done some coalition building. So we were part of the Reimagining Safety Coalition with the ACLU. Our organization is of like an abolitionist mindset. We don't really prescribe to carceral solutions. So that was a really impactful coalition for us to be a part of in hopes of stopping the growth of the jail. In addition to that type of coalition building, we've also joined other community initiatives that are around like Hawaii abortion, so the Hawaii Abortion Coalition, and other community care. We do community organizing, so that looks like tabling, and also showing up in response to community-wide events. That can be just calling out violence that might be happening or organizing something where we're bringing in the larger community to understand our message and how it can relate with them. And then we've been doing reproductive justice work. Like I mentioned, the Hawaii Abortion Coalition, but we also have an abortion support program specifically for sex workers and survivors of violence. And that's to be like officially launched in late May and June. That's in partnership with Sweetgrass Wellness Collective, which is an all-Black doula collective on the island. And how we show up. So we lead through and with the community. This looks like talking to folks about what they need and responding by working collaboratively to meet those needs. We have many community partners that help us in this work as well. So we work with Hawaii or Hpha Hawaii, with the BIPOC Sex Worker Writers Space, New Moon Fund, Hawaii Opiate and Consumer Alliance, Hawaii People's Fund, Domestic Violence Action Center, Trans Justice Funding Project, and Freedom Network, which is an anti-trafficking org. In addition to that, when we say that we're leading our programs through what the community is asking for, it's literally conversations at our events, and allowing folks to respond to, if the event is meeting their needs. And then also when we're thinking of planning new events, normally on outreach, we'll talk to folks. And yeah, that's how we create our programming. And this is just a picture from one of our wellness events of some folks picking out some clothes. And how to support us. So we love volunteers and we welcome folks who are aligned with our work to come and help us out. We have a range of opportunities for those who are not sex workers or survivors. So we have kind of this like split pool of, if you know somebody who identifies in that way, that you're able to do work with us a little more closely, or do like programmatic work and have that kind of, we try to allocate power in that way. If you're not a sex worker or you're not a survivor of violence, there's so many other ways for you to plug in and support our work. We always need people to help us cook food for outreach. We always need hands to help us with our like storage and things like that. And then we also do with our community events, we need help with setup. So there's other ways to plug in, and definitely willing to, like, if you're thinking in some of your like public health minds, some of like the researchers or data people in the room, we definitely love that kind of volunteering as well, because there's back end stuff that I need help with. I'm like our admin person. So I'm the one doing surveys or writing our grants and doing all that stuff. So always need the help. You can donate to our work if you're interested. Donations primarily happen through like our fiscal sponsor, which is Swap Behind Bars, or through Hawaii People's Fund. They've been a funder for us for quite a few years. So you can always look up our organization on their website and donate to us there. And then what is like a huge support is talking to your community about our organization and other harm reduction orgs. It's really important to support and get involved in grassroots work. It's different than nonprofit work in a special way that it's really rooted in community and rooted in the voices of your neighbors. Not that nonprofits don't do that. Grassroots work is just a little bit different. It's more gritty or something. I don't know how to explain that. But it's just essential to making our community move towards liberation and wellness. And so, yeah, just invite y'all to share about what you learned here with both of our orgs, Chris's and the org that I shared. Because yeah, the only way that we're able to exist is with continued community support. That's all I have for today. I'll pass it back to you, Anika.
Thank you so much, Kiki, for that amazing presentation on the wonderful work you folks do to serve for our communities. We'll go ahead and move forward with our Q&A session, which our wonderful Vicky will be moderating. So, Vicky, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to ask our panelists questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anika. Wherever you are, however you want to, go ahead and give our panelists another round of applause. I know I had to hold myself back from like popping in to be like, oh, I have a question about that. Oh, I have a question about that. And so I'm really excited to say that our audience is exactly the same. There are so many great questions that have been raised in our Q&A and in our chat. So I want to start with a really simple question for both Kiki and excuse me, for both of you folks, Kiki and Chris. Your operations, are they primarily on Oahu? Do you have statewide partners? How does this function? Because we're an island nation, an island state, depending on how you look at it. So how can folks get involved if they're not close by?
Yeah, so we are based on Oahu, but like I said, we're part of the Hawaii People's Fund Network, which is on all of the islands. And we've done some work in Maui as well. So if folks from other islands want to contact us through our website or email, that's honestly the best way to plug in. And then reaching into our community partner, Hawaii People's Fund would be a great way for folks to plug into our work. Yeah, and then we also have our Instagram. We're not super active there anymore though, with all of the changes online. So, but people are, yeah, email us, and we'll get you connected to resources.
Yeah, and for us, we're exclusively on Oahu. All of our programs are regionally focused at the moment. Kuli'o Ridge Trail is the flagship program that we run. And then our nurseries in Kumilanui Valley and Hawaii Kai. So we are working to figure out how we can continue to provide access, even within our island of Oahu, to communities on other sides of the island, to provide access to our education programs or internships. But if you have any ideas of how we could better support those off island, aside from connecting to partner organizations, we're all ears as well.
Thank you. We have a really great question that was asked very early on that I know can be for both of you folks, even though it was specifically directed to just one organization. Do you, and so we'll start off with Chris for this one. And then the reason why I think we can transition it over to you, Kiki, is because even though it's not necessarily in context what you guys do, I think that there are so many different cultural aspects you can touch on to provide input as well. So do you, Chris, have kupuna talks or some kupuna who comes and talks about medicinal and cultural aspects from your work at ATA, and when and where? How can we find out more about that?
So we don't have exclusive kupuna talks, but we have these gatherings where we welcome all community of all ages. So one that is, we do have heavy kupuna presence at is our Aloha Friday watering. So every Friday we have a small community that comes out to just be in the forest and to get their hands dirty and work with the land. So that's where we largely share kind of that Ike knowledge. Additionally, we have other community programs. We just launched an initiative with DOFA, Department of Forestry, DLNR, that is focused on planting native Hawaiian hardwood trees, specifically for the use of cultural practice. So the idea is we've planted around 100 Hawaiian hardwoods, and in 30, 50 years, we can, with the support of community engagement, community stewardship, we'll be able to harvest those trees for cultural practice. So for woodworkers to pass on that knowledge and that to future generations or to those that are interested. So for that program in particular, we invited the kupuna of Kuli'o to participate. It was an awesome opportunity for our community members, our core volunteers, to learn a little bit more about the history of the place and the significance of not only Kuli'o as a valley, but around what our community members had been told from their mothers, their fathers, their grandmothers and grandfathers about the place and its cultural significance and what the land had been used for, right? And so those are the types of engagements that we focus on that bring in outside voices from Kupuna, and we do our best to also provide the opportunity for those voices to talk to our keiki so that it becomes a generational kind of realm of support.
Thanks, Chris. And Kiki, kind of going off of what Chris was saying, I know that the demographic that you folks work with is significantly different than the folks in the environmental realm. But what types of activities do you have for folks that you've helped to mentor or to, kind of like Chris was saying, take this knowledge that they have to continue to make things well and better for your demographics?
Yeah, I think it's important to note too that folks who have done this type of specific work are in all parts of our worlds. And I think it's something that often, not everybody is out. They're not going to share the types of things maybe that they've done or the experiences that they've gone through. So I just want to note that there might be crossover. I totally think there's probably some folks who are ecologists that are maybe in this world. Who knows? That being said, to answer your question, we've done specific Kupuna talk stories, specifically with our trans elders, with the Imperial Sovereign Court. And that was a really, this was last November. That was a really impactful session. We asked folks what safety meant to them, both maybe when they had engaged in this work, what they were looking at in their lives at that moment, like right now, the work that they were doing now, and then like what they hope to see for the future. And that really led to conversations around safety. It led to conversations around the land and their connection to the land and how important that was for them in their own healing, and just opened up an avenue for youth who were attending to rely on the wisdom of those kupuna specifically. Outside of that, the other community events that we have that kind of build on cultural connection and community support, I would say definitely like our zine making event. And I know there was a couple questions. People were wondering like, what's a zine? I kind of shared briefly, but it's like a very small storybook that you yourself makes. You can make it by just like folding up a piece of paper. But it was a storytelling event. So similar to where we did Kupuna Talk Story, where people are just talking out. This was an opportunity where we invited folks in to share about their experiences and write down things that were meaningful for them, and either choose to share it or just keep that for themselves. A couple of people did actually share their story with other folks who attended the event. That event as well, we had a massage provider. So they were doing chair massage. We had someone doing Hawaiian herbal healing. So they had like a bunch of teas and other herbal wellness items for folks to take. So yeah, we're always dreaming about the ways that we can continue to include a cultural perspective, and also just allow the folks who identify with this land and this place to lead the events that we have and the work that we're doing.
Wonderful. We have so many cool questions, and I can't decide where to go next because your information is just incredible. One of the things that you both stress so much, and it's really coming across that this is an integral part to your work, is listening to your communities. And I'll have you start with this question first. But when you're listening to your communities, that's a very long process, and it can take a lot of time. But in the long run, it's the best, most effective way. So, how do you make this community collaboration slightly more effective and efficient?
I think one thing that's been really integral for us, and maybe Chris can agree with this, is the consistency in community. So like having these either like weekly or even like our quarterly events are really nice because it gives a different space for perspectives. Whereas like our weekly outreach, we're all kind of busy and maybe one of us can step aside and talk to somebody, but you get different perspectives and engaging in those different community activities. And I think that's been really, yeah, if you're talking to somebody every Saturday, that quicken things up a little bit, you're hearing some of the similar asks, and hopefully I think similar to other work in the community, it's dependent on our funding, how fast we can turn around some of these community requests. But some of the asks too are more attainable and don't cost any money. Sometimes it's like, could y'all come a little earlier, or whatever the thing may be. So we're able to make those kind of small pivots. Another thing that's made community reflection go faster, I think, is our involvement in like coalition work and our community partner work. So once a month, I'm meeting with Anika and a couple other folks with Hpha Hawaii. And I think being able to voice in those spaces too, where there's some other minds in the room and other providers or other community leaders that can say, oh, hey, that ask can be met in this way. An example of that is we just did like a community survey where we were able to get some resources to folks. And yeah, without that conversation space, it wouldn't have been able to happen. So I think those are the things that help kind of push forward community voice.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when you are building with community, it's always going to be messy and challenging, right? You have to figure out how to take lots of information. A lot of times it's intergenerational information and organize it in a way where you're solving for, for us, Keiki Tukupuna. And I would completely agree with Kiki. One of the big pieces that we focus on is consistency. So we've got routine points of engagement with our community. Every Friday we have Aloha Friday watering, the third Saturday of the month. We invite people from our whole community to come out and help. They know when to find us. One of the other things that we've been leaning into more to kind of elevate community voices, invest in community core volunteers, or those who have kind of stepped up and said, I want to be a little more involved, right? And we can know that those are individuals who represent different parts of our community and who are bringing strong perspective and wanting to be more involved. And so by investing in additional training for those individuals, setting up more opportunities for them to get involved in meaningful ways and listen to what they have to say have been really effective for us to have a sounding board that is closer to us, that also reflects the needs of our community. And then, the third piece of this for us is how it affects our education programs, because we try to target Title I schools. We try to target a mix of public and charter schools as well as private schools in our area. And as we're developing these programs, it's really important that we understand how the curriculum that we're developing fits the needs of the students that we're servicing. And so, that in part is having our education manager be really in tune with what it is these teachers are actually dealing with. And I mentioned barriers earlier, what the barriers might be to their participation, so we can actually get a little bit closer to those community members. And so those are some of the things that we're thinking about is just like, how can we use the resources that are closest to us to get a good sounding board and then dive into some of those core issues that are coming up from the larger community. And when you start to compile them and document them, it gets a little easier to sort through and prioritize what will maybe move the needle a little bit more as you're planning for your programs and building for your audience over the course of the year or the next couple of years. So that's kind of how we look at it in a nutshell.
That's a really great way to get creative with your work and to not get bored. But we know in this work, there's so many challenges. Chris, you mentioned a lot about the barriers. Kiki, I'm sure you're familiar with more barriers than I can possibly even imagine. Um, and so it's important to provide your services free, low cost, but free if possible. Um, but how do you sustain your nonprofit without the risk of bankruptcy or workforce burnout? Because when you are in the nonprofit organization, you're wearing several different hats. You know, you're executive director, you're head gardener, you're all of these different things. So let's start with you first, Chris, and then Kiki next.
Yeah, I mentioned it in the presentation because you always have to be on the move for fundraising. I think as a nonprofit executive director, the one thing that I've learned over the last year is that that role never stops, right? Even with a small organization of 4 full-time, employees, it's a lot to carry and support those individuals while also planning for the growth of your organization and your community. So I'm almost, 40% of my role is getting out there and writing grants and fundraising around our mission and vision and thinking about our strategy in a way that it's not only applicable for funding this year, but for hopefully years to come. Um, coming out of COVID and with the administration change for nonprofits across the board, I think there was a really big question mark around what this was going to mean for nonprofit fundraising and the federal funding landscape, right? Look, most nonprofit leaders that I talked to were unsure what was going to happen from a federal funding level all the way down to a state and county funding level. And so luckily, I think we're sort of coming out of the other side in terms of understanding what that funding landscape is going to look like. But it forced nonprofits to start to think about how to be resilient if you couldn't rely solely on maybe some of the larger federal or state grants that you were looking at. So that's something that, I've actively been in conversation around as well as how do we diversify funding and tell a story in a way that helps to bring in community funders and small donors as well as small to mid-sized grants all the way up to larger state and federal grants that we'd be chasing, and how do you create a funding landscape that helps to incorporate and bring that whole ecosystem closer to your vision and mission in a way that is sustainable and for an organization small to an organization large. So those are some of the challenges that we're thinking about actively and that are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, it's hard work, but it's good work.
Kiki, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. One of the main tenets of our organizing, I think that we've like tried to hold true is that we want to offer resources for folks' time. That's been a main priority for us. So like our events, we try to offer stipends for folks because we figure if you weren't here, maybe you would be working or doing something else. So that being said, it's been a priority for us to, make sure we have the budget to do that while also giving rest to our organizers and support them as well when the time comes for organizing events or showing up in community. We've been primarily funded through foundation grants. We've done some fundraising in the past, so we've like showed a movie in community and invited community members in to learn about sex worker organizing. What does that landscape look like maybe in Hawaii, and give more of a perspective about the work that we're doing. So definitely in-kind donations and community donations have helped kind of back end support us. I will also note for folks that sex worker organizing and organizing around HIV and AIDS and substance users, our funding has been drastically cut with the current landscape. And I think now more than ever, community donations mean a ton to keep our work consistently funded. Foundations are still funding our work. And so we've been really relying on those relationships that we have with those funders, places like Hawaii People's Fund, Third Wave Fund, and other philanthropic spaces have been really instrumental in making sure that our work remains sustainable. And I think that's also too for us. One of the main reasons we're not a nonprofit and we are remaining a grassroots organization is so none of us have to be an executive director. So bless your heart, Chris. We recognize there's a lot of administrative burden that takes away from our ability to show up. And that's where we rely on our fiscal sponsor and community. They're a really great nonprofit and they have that admin capacity to be able to make sure that we're compliant with the state and the spaces that we're showing up in. But that's been really also instrumental into making sure our organizers don't burn out. I think another thing that's been really beautiful to witness in this type of organizing work is just the amount of grace that everybody has for each other's timing and capacity. We recognize that folks have lives outside of the organizing work that we do. And so there's a ton of room for people to ebb and flow and show up in our work in the ways that they can. One of our organizers is actually in law school. So they are super, super, super busy, which means they can show up every 3 months. That's totally okay. And we just leave that type of room and space for folks to kind of ebb and flow with the work. And we just recognize that's how we want community to move with us too, is like we should be having grace for each other in the ways that we can show up. That's how we remain able to do the work and remain able to be in conversation with each other, I think.
Thank you. We have more questions and a short amount of time. So I'm going to ask the question of the hour, which is our event today is called Kuleana in Action. And Kiki, we'll start with you. When you hear Kuleana in Action, what does it mean for the work that you do and your community?
My understanding of Kuleana and kind of like the weight of that word is that it's a responsibility that's carried. And I think for myself in this work, for me, that means that most of the things that I'm doing in my day to day and in my advocacy work outside of the organization relate back to my work. I think I have and try to in most spaces show up. Yeah, I just show up as myself. I show up with this like priority and I don't know. I have like a deep passion for my work too, and see it as more of like a path. So to me, it means like staying on the path, bringing people into that path as often as I can to help support me in my own responsibility for the work too. And also, I think one thing that's been pretty consistent and I think is also related to responsibility is sharing power. So I think somebody had like asked like, how did I learn grant writing? I learned from another organizer. I learned within community. So it feels like it's a part of the work in community to share the responsibility in that way too. I don't know if that's like, that's what it means to me.
Yeah, I love that. Every day you have a choice, right, to show up. And I feel like for all of these initiatives that, are based in people's values and, people hold so close to their hearts, you have the option to show up every day. And for me, I feel blessed to have the opportunity to show up for this community and for this work. Being born and raised on Oahu, and from that side of this southeast side of the island, I've been really fortunate to have grown up in the mountains and have surfed in the oceans and have had these experiences that have been so transformative in my own life that I feel a responsibility to be able to perpetuate that for others, now, past, present, and future. Um, and that's something that, I don't take lightly, and that's why I do the work. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's easy because it's fun. But oftentimes it's not. And, I think just being able to remind yourself that, we're blessed with this opportunity to be here now and to be able to have an impact is enough for me to keep going on this mission. And so that to me is what Kuleana in Action kind of resonates with and means to me is that it is, our chance to show up every day, our opportunity to show up every day and do something that we love and um, not to, yeah, not to, you have the choice to do what you do. And so that's my choice.
Thank you so much to our panelists. We literally have time for a rapid fire 30-second answer from both of you. And we'll start with Chris for this one. What is one action, big or small, that you want attendees to take away from today to support your work in the community?
Oh, yeah, I love this one. 30 seconds. Okay. Selfishly, I would love for each of you to come and experience ATA yourselves. Come out to a community work day. Again, our next big one is on April 18th. Everyone who comes gets a plant. So you can't lose out and you just get to get your hands dirty and it's a great group of people. So would love if you could come and join us there. You can sign up online at ATA, alohatreealliance.org/get involved. Additionally, if that's not your thing, just find what you're passionate about and go volunteer somewhere because these organizations need your help. They're community driven and you are what makes this machine tick. So that's me on my soapbox. Over to you, Kiki.
Thanks. Pretty much echoing that. Please come volunteer with us. Please participate in upcoming events. We're planning a movie showing for community this fall. So you can go to our website, swaphawaii.org, to check that out. And follow us on Instagram at swaphawaii. We post our events there and give you an idea of what's happening in our community. You can also, like Chris said, just volunteer in community. Find a place, plug in. If swap is not for you and you're like, I'm not into trying to help out that community, fine, cool. Find what, is like singing to your heart and do that. But we're always here. Please feel free to email us or reach out. We would love to engage with y'all.
Thank you so much to our panelists today. Thank you so much to Hawaii Public Health Association for hosting today. I'm going to hand it back to Anika for our closing remarks and have fun with all of this new information.
Awesome. Let's give a virtual round of applause to our panelists and our wonderful moderator, Vicky. Panelists and Vicky, I hope you know that you're getting wonderful praise in the chat. And once again, if you are interested in getting involved, look at their organization websites. I'm sure they would greatly appreciate it. Even if you can't attend any of the volunteer events, if you just share them as a resource, I'm sure they'd be very appreciative about that. Kiki and Chris, your dedication to community-driven, culturally grounded public health truly does reflect this year's theme, Kuleana to Action. And on behalf of HPHA and the attendees, we really do appreciate your time and presentations on the wonderful work that you folks do. As we close today's event, I also do want to highlight HPHA Student Fellowship Program. So if you don't know what this is, it is a great opportunity to get hands-on experience in public health, and it does include a $500 stipend. The deadline to apply is April 30th, and the details can be found on our website homepage, HPHA. We did receive a very few applications so far. So if you or some like a student you know is interested, please do not wait. Once again, the deadline to apply is April 30th, and there is a $500 stipend for the fellow. So once again, thank you so much for everyone participating today and your continued commitment to advancing health equity across Hawaii. Really, as the president of HPHA, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. Thank you to the panelists for presenting on the wonderful work that you folks do. With that, hui hou. Have a wonderful night. Stay dry, stay safe. Thank you so much, everybody.